I will call the WSESD board meeting to order at 6:03. The meeting of the WSESD will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to a time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. So we will start with student I need to address something that from the previous meeting that I did not put on the agenda, which was the discussion of the minutes, because this meeting was essentially for the budget, and we will take up that on a further agenda. So I don't want to take away from the importance of the budget and this evening. So not that doesn't mean it's an important issue. I don't want that to be misunderstood. So we will go to student matters for 5 to 10 minutes. We will see if the students here would like to speak and or any one of the students, if there are any students online. Do you have anything you want to
say? We didn't have anything to say.
And that's great. That's fine. We just wanted to give you an opportunity. Are there any students online who would like to share something with the board? Questions, comments, concerns?
I'm not seeing any hands, and I will say that Michelle is never doing this.
Okay.
But no hands.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more time if there are any students in the Zoom who are interested in sharing anything with the board or have concerns they would like to share.
I have a hand up.
Okay, wonderful.
David S.
David S.
Hi, I actually had a question for the students. A few months ago, or maybe a couple months ago, some of the students asked for more comfortable or less formal options for reporting abuse. And I'm wondering if the students are experiencing any change in the opportunities that they're aware of or that are being provided. Has anything changed along those lines? Thanks.
So I invite the students here, or if there are any students online who would like to respond. Okay. Is there anyone in the administration? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Kelly. I know if Kaya wanted to speak on that, but I can if Kaya, do you want to say anything?
Go ahead, Ben. I was trying to think of something.
David, at least from my admittedly limited perspective, I think that it's been a topic that's we've put aside for at least our student advisory committee has for now to focus on some other things, but not one of less importance. If there is, then it's a communication issue that we're always willing to work on with the student body. So I think that's where we stand and are always happy to try and advocate for to people know what their resources are.
Thank you.
I think Ben basically said what I was thinking. It's just, there's so many different, we want everyone to feel comfortable, but there's a certain point of where it's hard to process the information. It can't be totally anonymous. There's not really a set way that it can actually be completely anonymous. And that's some problems that we've been running into, because we want everyone to feel comfortable and make sure that they can actually report things and feel comfortable with that. But there's a lot of factors to it.
I just want to add too, and the students can speak to this book, because by no means like, do I want to put ideas or words in their mouth, and I fully support any suggestions that they have, but I think as a community, I'd like to think this year we really work towards being more transparent and providing supports and avenues to have those challenging conversations to our students. And I'll just share, like this year, I'm receiving far more like emails from students like expressing concerns around teachers, not in regards to like certain abuses, but maybe like, you know, being treated respectfully in class, and like just coming forward and feeling comfortable sharing that with me, and knowing that like we can, you know, pull in Mr. Sostak, or, you know, at least I can respond to them and hear them. And like, please know you can always come to me or Miss Lane or Miss Parker or anyone else in the building you feel comfortable reporting anything to. And like, we, you know, we'll address it to the best of our ability. I mean, really, that's the culture that we want to create.
And I've had students reach out to me.
Yeah, exactly. Which I totally welcome. Like, you know.
David, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, just a quick response. The reason I asked that is, and I'm glad that Cassie described that, because that's exactly what I was hoping was happening. But I wanted to just see if the students if it's getting down to the students, and it's getting out into the student body, and hopefully that is, and that'll continue. Just one comment to Kaya. There may not be an anonymous method to report within the school system, but the district's investigator, the attorney at Anderson Goddard, does take anonymous reports, and we'll follow up on it.
And I've shared that information, Goddard's information, you know, with students when they've asked, and it's felt appropriate, you know, to do so, because I want them to have that resource as well if they don't feel comfortable sharing it with somebody in the building.
Thank you, David, for that clarification. Anyone else who would like to share anything on student matters before we move on? Okay, then we are moving on to the consent agenda, the clerk's report. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 13, 2022?
I'll move.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Liz. So that was Sean and Liz. All those in favor of approving the minutes of December 13, 2022? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. We will move on to public comment on non-agenda items for 10 minutes. Anyone making a comment can expect a response that falls into one of the following categories: receive an acknowledgement of the comment with no further action planned, receive an immediate response by the board chair or administration. Administration would be directed to contact and respond to the person. Clarification sought from the administration for a specified meeting. The topic would be added to a specified future board agenda. The matter would be referred to an executive session, or a public hearing would be held on the matter. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comment on non-agenda items?
David had the hand.
David.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I wonder if the school principal reports that the administration agreed to provide monthly, if those reports could be posted on a separate page on the new website. I would like to continue to see them, and they are public documents. And I can't find them anywhere on the website. I'm assuming that they're not being posted. So I'm requesting that those be posted as they come to the board, that they also be posted, and that it be a page that you can find relatively easily, that includes those reports. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, David. I assume that Paul will address that if it needs to be addressed. Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak during the public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, I'm going to ask one more time. Public comment on non-agenda items. We are moving on to unfinished business, sexual abuse investigation. I do not have anything for that. I don't know if the administration has any. Okay. Okay, we move on to the administrative report.
Okay, and Kelly and I had talked about not really doing much of a full report tonight, and spending most of our time on the budget. I will give kind of an exciting update from this afternoon. Our Tuesdays are reserved for staff meetings in our school district or team meetings. This afternoon, we held a full district staff meeting with a gentleman by the name of Jesse Hagopian, who's a high school teacher in Seattle, who has taught for over a decade. Jesse serves as the director of Black Education Matters Student Activist Award, is an organizer with the Black Lives Matter at School movement, and is founding member of Social Equity Educators, amongst many other things that he's accomplished. Black Lives Matter Week is coming up end of January. And as an admin team working with the Office of Diversity and Equity at our last admin meeting, we just talked about how to prepare for that week. And it was proposed that we create an experience with Jesse, who's like a leader in our country around this work. And we spent 45 minutes on a Zoom call with him. And that was essentially our full staffs, all of our administrators. Some schools had already had items planned for this afternoon. So we'll follow up with those schools. But I thought it set a really nice foundation for the work we've been doing as a school district and moving forward specifically with Black Lives Matter week at school. So I thought that was really cool. And it relates to some work that will be reflected in our budget proposal as well. In terms of the budget, the first draft of the budget that we'll be presenting tonight, talk about some of the highlights, and Frank will get into the details and the numbers. But some positions that we invested in last year and will continue to this year. We've hired 2 additional ELL teachers to support more ELL students as it relates to our Afghan refugees, which has been a really great development in our school district. We have a major investment in cybersecurity on the technology front. As you can remember, we invested in a facilities manager, district-wide manager, that we will continue with in the future. And then overall facility improvement investments with a focus on air quality control systems, ventilation, energy efficient heating systems and projects. Last year, we made significant investments in instructional coaches, academic support teachers, social workers, clinicians, counselors, behavior interventionists. These are key investments and components that support our continuous improvement plan or action plan, centered on our development around multi-layered systems of support development, EST development, diversity, equity, inclusion development. So all of the investments are reflected in this year's proposal as well, to continue to support academic, social, emotional, behavioral growth of our students. And we have principals here to speak to this as well tonight. In terms of diversity, equity, inclusion office, we invested in a district-wide coach last year to partner with Michaela. We will continue with that investment moving forward, as well as to continue to support teacher leader stipends at each school site to continue the work and continue the goal of our curriculum and assessment office working hand in hand with our diversity equity office, because diversity work is not 1 week, right? It's everyday work and how we show up at school every day. So that's happening, which is very happy with. First draft, feel free to ask us questions, provide feedback. And obviously, we'll look at this again in January. But with that kind of framework and overview, I will hand it over to Frank and encourage Paul and principals to chip in on the discussion as we roll out the numbers.
We're now moving to the fiscal report.
Okay, and I'll basically cover the budget on that topic. And Paul, do you have me set up for share? Not yet, okay.
I lost everybody. Where'd they go?
Still on our system.
Hey.
So while we get that started, I'll be going over this summary document that you have a hard copy on. Let's see. Do you know if the Zoom folks can hear me? Don't have it up there a second ago, Paul.
Yeah.
We can hear you, Frank.
can hear you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, I don't really need that screen as long as
I need to see it in order to enable your.
I see. Okay, very well. So I'm sure Paul will get that coordinated. And what we're looking at is the summary document that was sent out last week. And it was also reviewed last. Are you all set? Okay, thank you. Here we go. Share screen. And there we are. Okay, so I'm now sharing the same document with our Zoom participants. So what this represents is the proposal for operating schools July of 2023 through June of 2024, fiscal year 24. In this proposal, you see total expenditures, 62,944,000, up 1.9 million or 3.2% over the current budget. This is for approximately 2,400 students, K through 12, pre-K through 12. And as you see, and sort of very much in line with what Mark was giving us an overview on, the major investments here are reflected in some of the percent changes. 3.2 is actually quite a bit under the inflation rate, but we have shifted some of the focus of what we are spending money on. The largest increase you see on the page, 1.2 million here, under the function 2,500, and we have support services, special education. This also includes the diversity equity program, transportation, and food service. That's all part of the supervisory union central services. It also includes, as Mark said, the English language learner. We have 2 additional staff to respond to the resettlement community. So that's very much been discussion at the supervisory union board meetings over the last several weeks. And that meeting is scheduled for tomorrow to finalize the supervisory union budget. So that's as I say, sort of the single largest increase in our proposed budget, and very much driven by, and we'll see in some other documents here, addressing student needs, particularly in special education. Another, maybe the second larger increase on a percent basis, this 11%, 453,000, that is in, again, the area that Mark emphasized, student support services. So what that reflects here, and when we get into the accounting codes and all of that budget detail that we have to work within, according to the uniform chart of accounts the legislature passed, student support services are primarily our counselors, our nurses, and now the new investments that push us up 11% in this category, social workers, clinicians, behavior interventionists. So this group of services includes 2 new positions. Moving along, you see, of course, the largest category of spending is this 26 million direct instruction. So this is our classroom instruction, our certified teachers working and instructing directly with students in the classroom, including our academic support teachers, and all of the supplies and equipment that goes with that. That also includes our co-curricular programs. The state considers those, working directly with students as a direct instruction initiative. So those are our major, changes and spending categories as you see in this budget. I'll move on to the next page in this summary document. Maybe just glance here at the graph, which is telling us as those numbers. This is just a graph of those numbers, which says, the vast majority of our resources are in direct instruction. And then when we bring over the second largest category of spending, this is that support for our special education students, and also including our English language learner staff, our diversity equity staff, our curriculum and assessment staff. So these are still very much oriented toward supporting instruction. When you put those two together, this is 18% and this is 49%. You see it's the vast majority of our budget. Coming down to some of the highlights, the detailed document is 197 pages, I think, maybe something like that. And that summary page essentially rolls up that spending in what we call a functional category. That reminds me, I wanted to send around this little sort of a definition document. It's something you've had before. It's on the website. It's simply taking the chart of accounts that we're required to use, and it gives you that sort of a short list of what a function number means, like 1100 or 1000 means direct instruction. That's on that first page. Or 2100 is student support. It gives you the definitions that go along with this. So might be helpful if you do get into the details. But whether you're looking at the detailed document or the summary document, the highlight here is, as we covered, this budget proposal up 1.9 million to 3.2% over the prior year. As soon as we get our equalized student data statistics from the Agency of Ed, we'll be able to provide the tax impact, the school tax impact. And for folks that are not familiar with equalized students, real briefly, I could give you a long story on that, but goes back to how I was introduced to this district, but I won't do that. It's a legislative defined term, and it's essential. It's a central part of our school funding formula. Essentially what it is, it's in the statutes. We report our students to the Agency of Education. The Agency of Education goes to various data sources to identify students in poverty, the English language learner student groups, and the state assigns weights to the statistics. They send us back those student counts with the weights. And what that does is it theoretically distributes the resources to schools to allow schools, if we have a high poverty community, it reduces the tax liability because it increases the student count, and theoretically gives us more resources for interventions. And this system has done a terrific job, relatively speaking, across the state in taking those resources and investing in the interventions, as you just heard, social workers, clinicians, but also job coaches, instructional coaches, academic support. These are the things that research shows that absolutely do correlate with better outcomes for students. So we'll get that data fairly soon. Should have been to us by December 15th, according to the law, but they're running a little behind. As soon as I get it, from the agency vet, I will provide an update. But other major cost drivers in the budget. So I mentioned up 1.9 million. Here's 2.6 million in costs if you just pulled it out of these documents and you sort of isolated. Well, what are some of the major cost drivers? Of course, no surprise. We are primarily a wage or salary oriented entity in terms of the economics, right? We're mostly people. We're not heavy equipment and industrial process. We are people. So of course you would expect the wages to be the single larger cost component. So salary and wages are up 1.1 million in this budget. That does include 9 or 10 new positions. But we have had quite a bit of turnover, and that's why we're not seeing this number look more like an inflation rate, which would be a 5% increase. The second single largest number in all of these statistics, if you pull together a category, is the health insurance. Health insurance is up 775,000 based on the settlement that the Vermont State Health Commissioners have negotiated for all public schools in Vermont. It's no longer our peer review to negotiate for health insurance. It's the legislature took that upon themselves under Act 11 in 2018. Third cost driver I've already mentioned, special education services, and that is net of state aid. So there's 2.6 million of the 1.9 million in increases. That has been offset by a lower spending in capital projects. We continue to spend a good deal in capital projects, but it's at a lower pace as our ESSER funding diminishes. And also our bond payment is starting to diminish as well. Fiscal year 25, we eliminate the 1.6 million principal payment on this building's original bond for the addition. So that will have a significant effect. Enrollment is, probably the most important statistic, of course, is, how stable is our student population. It is quite stable. But if we're going to see spending increases, it's awfully helpful from a tax point of view if it correlates with an increase in enrollment. So we have a small increase, but not significant. So those are some of the highlights. This is a document we typically update and put into the annual report. You see a reference to the capital plan. We'll be updating the future several years of the capital plan, but this number here is what we also show, 10.5 million. Just to give you the correlation of that document, and if folks on Zoom are following along, here's the capital plan. There's that 10.5 million right here. And if you looking at your hard document, it's page 10. As I said, we will be reaching a consensus on the most important capital plan projects for fiscal year 24. We haven't really refined that. This plan is what is in the annual report from last year. And as I mentioned, as ESSER funding diminishes, you see here it is 1.8 million this year, down to 765. We are tailing off our investments accordingly. But we've really ramped up capital improvements in the last 5 years and done some really terrific upgrades to our buildings. Okay, so there is a couple of the highlights, a little preview of what we need for calculating a tax rate, which is a measure of fiscal responsibility, fiscal sustainability for our community. We can't do that at this time because we don't have all the statistics from the Agency of Ed. I will update that as soon as I get them. I mentioned here's those same statistics on enrollment. You had the one number on the summary page, 2,400 students, 2,300 in the prior year. This data is on a grade level. So you got pre-K, grade 1, 2, 3, 4 through 12, and it compares this last year to this year. So no remarkable changes in the data there. One other point of reference for the board that I like to help emphasize is our solvency. How strong is the financial house? And we are in good shape. We are certainly not in an unusually favorable financial position, but we are in a what would be considered a prudent, financially prudent status. $5.1 million fund balance to support a $50 or now $60 million operating budget, right? So that's where we ended up in June, this past June. We've scheduled to refund $900,000 of that fund balance this fiscal year, and then another $950 next fiscal year, which would bring us down to $3.3 million, which is about 5% of our operating budget, and that's a typical target. You might recognize. I'm trying to. Oh yes, it was a tax commissioner letter I shared with you last meeting. One of their mandates is a 5% reserve for the Vermont Education Fund. That's a typical reserve target for municipal state entities. Finance Committee has gone through the significant amount of detail here over the last several weeks. Here's our revenue assumptions. So I know Finance Committee's had some questions and we've addressed them. I didn't intend to get into that level of detail tonight, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions that folks might have. Maybe just one point that is pretty significant in all of these numbers is the education spending grant. So that's the number that balances the budget. That's the difference between total spending, the 60 million, and all other sources of revenue. Like the small schools grant, 200,000, the 1.1 million in the Career Center grant. We add all of those grants up and all of those income sources up, and then we compare it to our spending, and that's the number that balances the budget. It also is the number that gets plugged into the tax calculation. So if you recognize this 47 million, it's going to approximately 51 million. When we come back here to this tax page, see that 47 million, that's it. That number is when we get the update from the Agency of Ed that gives us equalized student data, that's the number that we will plug into the schedule, and we'll see what it derives for a tax rate. I am anticipating that it will be similar to the inflation rate, that tax impact, which may prompt us to revisit, this draft. So here's our capital plan that I've already sort of touched on briefly, and then here are again, in the summary documents, the school site overviews of the proposed budget. So starting on page 11, and then going through to the end of the document, what you see here is that each page organized by the function, the direct instruction, supportive students, supportive teachers. That's the 2200 support service for instruction would be for your instructional coaches. It would be for professional development activities. And that's why I handed out that little definition document for you. Anything with a 2400 is generally school administration. And then 2600, you see maintenance of plant, transportation. Now, transportation is only field trips and co-curricular. It's not to and from school. To and from school is in the SU, and that's part of that large assessment that we have already talked about. The way all of these schools are organized in terms of data is our functional investments that are locally funded first. So in Academy, you see the subtotal 6.9 million, up 2.6%. And then the same information from a how we are organized, in terms of direct instruction, student support, and so on, but funded with non-local money, or in this case, mostly ESSER money. And then the change. So when we look at Academy School in total, it says it's down 11%, but the core programs funded locally are up 2.6%. And the major change here, as you can see, is most of they built a building, an addition renovation project. It's come out very nicely at the elementary school. And that was an $886,000 project. And we're not expecting to build another building in Academy. So you see a substantial reduction there. So that's our format for each school. And as we go through, here's the high school total up 3.3 on a 19,188,000 proposal. These are organized by the way the state assigned the site number. So Dummerston is site number 1087 and the high school is 1040. That's why kind of a random organization. I wouldn't have organized it this way, but it is dictated to us. Dummerston up 6.8%, 230,000. And actually, Julian, I understand we didn't have a chance to chat, but I understand there might be a redundant position that we're going to address here. So that will probably come down a little bit in our next draft. And in Guilford, we have, you see a similar size school, but they don't have the 7th and 8th grade. So pre-K 6, similar, but don't have a middle school. So 2.9 million. Again, you'll see this similar pattern where the local budget is essentially sustained, and you'll see these reductions in the federal funded programs because ESSER is getting phased out. We're spending $6 million in ESSER funding in this budget that we're comparing ourselves to. Next year, we only have $3 million. So we have to phase out these programs. That's why you're seeing these reductions. Here's Putney Central School, up 7.5%. John is here, yes. In some of our schools, overall, we have 9 new positions. I think John has approximately two new positions. So if folks have questions for our principals, I know folks are ready to address those questions. The middle school is relatively level funded here at 2.3% total, $4.1 million proposal for approximately 260 kids. And Oak Grove School, similar to Guilford, 3.5 million, pre-K through grade 6. Now Guilford is up, Oak Grove is up more than all the other schools. It's a small school, and they need, they are the last to address fossil fuel based heating plant in the WSED, Windham Southeast School District. So you see a very significant increase in the maintenance of plant. You see going from 300,000 to 900,000. And at this point, that's mostly local. If we can find some more ESSER money or some kind of a renewable fuel grant, then we certainly will pursue it, but that kind of skews their data. And that is in the capital plan. The Green Street School, very much stable and complete plan as well, 4.3 million, with the reduction of the ESSER funding, basically a level funded budget. And then our district-wide. So these are the services that that are not affiliated specifically with a particular school, like, for example, school board. See school board right here. I've essentially carried forward the current budget. And you may recall last meeting, we asked if the school board has any requests. It would be great to hear those through Kelly, so that in my next draft for the January budget meeting, we can bring any proposed adjustments, and that would be next meeting, January 10th. So, a few days before that, we like to send budget data out at least by Friday of the day, the meeting, the date before the meeting. So that would be like the 6th of January. Okay, and the other thing, district-wide is a significant part of our budget proposal. You see 8.3 million, 9.6, 10.9. There's that 1.2 million increase. That's the those assessments that we spent the very first part of our conversation on. That's the special education assessment. It also includes the English language learner, transportation, and curriculum assessment, superintendent's office. That's diversity, equity. That's where the assessment shows up in more of a detail. And then when you dive into the 200-page report, you can get into a little bit more detail. Also, you see on the very far right of this document, it says that data is on page 174 of this document. So if you're trying to follow along, that's a helpful reference. And that is, let's see, actually, I think we have one more. Yeah, don't we? Did I go? Where's our career center? I didn't skip our career center. There we go. Yeah, career center 5014. They are the last proposal. Nancy has proposed quite a few new programs. Now, remember, I was mentioning that their enrollment is up quite a bit. So I would not be surprised to see when we get into calculating a tuition rate or some kind of a cost per student that's actually going to correlate pretty well, so that we won't see a particularly large impact on the tax rate associated with this higher spending. One of the kind of exciting proposals that is in this document that Nancy has included is an aviation program, a career technical ed credit for aviation, which might include like a commercial drone pilot, a license, an apprentice program for that. And there you go. There's our 62,944,000 that we started with at the front page, the 1.9 million, 3.2% proposal. So I think that's what we had intended to provide as an overview. Are there any questions we can address?
Liz has it.
Liz?
Yeah, it's not in this budget, but is somebody going to work with the Student Advisory Council to come up with some money for what they would like to see?
That's in the budget, Liz.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So as a follow-up to that, since we're going over the detail, where is that contained in the budget? Or is it in a variety of places because of furniture and professional development?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Answered my own question. Thank you.
Can
Yeah.
I add to that a little bit?
Yeah.
So we're actually meeting Thursday to sort of talk about the proposal.
Mhm.
And my thoughts moving forward is like combining a committee to look at like different models and options for like furniture changes throughout the school. And I think from there, we get an idea of like the actual cost and how we improve that. So. Yeah.
I'll see you there.
I'll see you
I'll be there. Great.
Other questions by board members, members of the public, administration? Okay,
Yeah, it's been a long process. Finance has met several weeks, and this is a representative of this group's input and engagement with staff and many hours of deliberation. So I think it is a well thought out plan. I know it's much driven by those guiding questions that we shared early on back in November about our reopening goals and supporting our students. I do just want to remind the board that when we get our equalized student statistics, it may change the constraints or the parameters of our proposal. We've been doing this long enough to know that if that data comes in lower than we expected, meaning fewer students, that will push our tax calculation up substantially. And the administration generally would not propose a budget that's going to spike the tax rate. We don't know what that is now. So this budget reflects our principal and our education community's assessment of our student needs. And this is a fully considered request for operating public schools next year. I just want to caution us that it's first draft and, we need to see what our fiscal responsibility parameter is.
Yeah, I think that on page 3 of that, I think what you're referring to, if I read this correctly, is that 47,703,562 is a placeholder really from last year. So that's why that represents, in my mind, the unknowns. So that can easily change and probably will change, which changes the whole page.
It's that 51 million right now is the number that will go in there. If we didn't change this draft, it would be 51 million. That's up, 8%. And if everything else was equal, that would be the increase in the tax rate. And that's an awfully high increase in a tax rate. We typically don't recommend a budget that would push the tax rate up much more than 3% or 4%. So, but you also heard the tax commissioner we shared that a couple of weeks ago, the yield number, and I was telling you how significant that yield number that mitigates the impact of the spending per student. If spending per student is high and the yield is very high or higher than that rate of growth, it essentially subsidizes it, it mitigates it. It means that the grand list will raise a lot more taxes per penny, and therefore the tax rate doesn't need to be so high. So that's part of what we're going to discover here.
So we're still waiting on some more crucial information. And we'll go from there. That's why this is a first draft.
It is a first draft, but I have to say, I'm very impressed how this was developed. All the administrators worked with Frank and Mark, and it's pretty awesome how well thought out it is and how careful it is. So I see that in the finance committee comes through, and you can really see the amount of energy and time and care has been, really expended in order to come up with this.
Add something. I just want to say too that at least from the high school standpoint, I just also wanted my administrative assistant Kathy Venice was instrumental in helping me organize this. So I just wanted, I don't know about the other schools, but it was definitely a team effort. So just want to put that out.
Well, I did want to thank Frank and all the administrators and Mark and the finance committee and the people in the community who have stepped in to assist with the budget. Anyone else who was sort of banded together to help to do this. So thank you. I'm going to ask one. Okay. Lana.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm wearing my husband's earbuds and I don't know, they feel strange. I just want to echo the thank you. This is a really well-crafted and easily digestible document. And from what I could see at this juncture, the numbers don't look like they went up as high as I was fearing they would. I know this is a first draft, so I'm hopeful that tax rates don't go up too much.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I think unless Frank or Mark has anything else, I think we'll move on to the new business. Thank you very much. And moving on to the new business, retirements, resignations.
Yes, we have one retirement to present to you tonight. Susan Johnson, current first grade teacher at Green Street School, will be retiring at the end of the school year.
There a motion to accept with regret the retirement of Susan Johnson of Green Street?
So moved.
Thank you, Lana. Is there a second?
Second.
Michelle, thank you. All those in favor of accepting with regret the retirement of Susan Johnson, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Do you have anything else, Mark?
I guess I would just say I really appreciate the comments of appreciation on the work for this draft, and historically and still today, this board has been super supportful of public education for our community and always steps up to work collaboratively with us as we present this to the community in March. So thank you for your support.
Unless there is nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Liz and Lana there in the background. All those in favor of adjourning for the evening, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so we are adjourned at 6:57, and I would like to wish everyone a wonderful evening and a great holiday and vacation, however it is that they spend it. So
Happy holidays, everyone.